water, sustainability and the environment. This is H2O Today.
The great water debate has concentrated on water security primarily, and particularly desalination, but that really is only a very small part of a broader and a more complex debate. The debate is how to make better use of what we already have, and no, that's not and should not focus on rationing, but rather innovation and technology, which is where Hydrosmart International is positioned. Hydrosmart is a new and innovative technology that doesn't use chemicals for the treatment of water. Hydrosmart International Director Paul Pearce joins us. Paul, thanks for your time.
Yeah, hi there.
Tell us about the technology.
Well, what we manufacture is a computerised water conditioning approach that comes from a European particle physics research exercise done over a decade ago. And we've been working it commercially into the field around Australia and now around the world by applying it to a wide range of applications.
So how does it work in layman's terms?
In layman's terms, what we have is a system where we put a processor, it's a microprocessor, and we attach that to the water pipe, and we have an antenna wrapped around the pipe that transmit the fields into the water. And there are a unique set of resonance frequencies that have transmitted into the water that have been found to work at interrupting the bonding mechanism. With this done, the elements that would normally be able to bond together and create crystalline structures, with the bonding ability interfered with, the mineral crystals collapse into sub-4 micron particle sizes and are more elementally available, which when it comes down to using treated water water that's been treated by the Hydrosmart technology, it enables irrigation with, say, high calcium-rich water, high levels of calcium, to be made available to the plants instead of going into the ground in a bicarbonate bonded form as a large crystal. And the sodium chloride, in targeting the bonds, we are breaking or having the chloride disassociate from the sodium and end up with some of that translating into free chlorine and reducing the particle size so that it doesn't block the capillary root system of plants, which is the major protagonist when it comes to plant growth and irrigating with salty water.
So on the one hand, if I have this right, on the one hand it treats water without the use of chemical, and on the other, can we say it it descales a pipe?
Well, they're just some of the outcomes that we've been experiencing using the approach. But yes, is the short answer. We have been applying it to diverse applications where scale has been removed from an irrigator's pipe work. In the case of one grower, a commercial grower, table grape growers on the Darling system, they have water that was high in salts and calcium, and they had an inch of scale on their 8-inch irrigation pipe work. We removed that from the pipe, and that translated into the soil in a form that was available to their grapevines, and they had a very healthy and a rapidly increasing health in their plants over the last 2 seasons. And with irrigators, we've got this on golf courses, and we have it on vineyards and farms around Australia where they're irrigating with saline water, brackish supplies of varying sources from 500 parts per million up to 5,000 parts per million and more, and getting very good outcomes with their grass or plants or vines and whatever the application is that we've applied it to.
So it is a way of using what we already have much more efficiently.
That's correct. One of the key differences that we find exciting about this approach is that unlike membrane technology, which uses a heck of a lot of energy and removes the minerals from the water in the crystalline form by having a very fine porosity membrane, it uses a lot of energy to do so, and also requires, in many cases, if there are calcium or other minerals in the water like iron, magnesium and silicates, those things can damage the reverse osmosis membrane, so they have a lot of filters in place as well. That often they use caustics and quite a lot of fairly hefty chemicals to clean the filters and to keep the membranes operating efficiently. It uses a lot of energy, a lot of coal is burnt to produce the electricity that drives the system. So they're very good for producing drinking water, but for agricultural applications, what we're finding is the ability of bond breaking is proving up to be, when the operational cost of our approach comes in on $10 a year to operate, in lieu of using a very the reverse osmosis technology, it makes it ridiculously cheap by comparison.
Absolutely.
And environmentally a sustainable approach.
If a current operational cost is, as you say, around $10, some people might say, well, where's the catch? Does that mean that there's a high capital cost to begin with?
The technology is, our placement with the technology has been working on the irrigation market, and when we're talking about an irrigator who might be spending, in one case last year we were talking to a farm that was looking at $220,000 for a small desalination unit in Bendigo, and they would have been having all of the removed salts have to go somewhere, which would probably end up on an evaporation pan, as they call it, which leaves the minerals in a salt form that will, where does that end up? Invariably often back in the soil and back in the aquifer. But they were looking at $220,000, and the operational cost of that may be $10,000 or $20,000 a year. Our technology to solve that problem equivalent was $8,000, and their operational cost is $10 a year. So it's a bit of a joke by comparison, and people will often look at, if you look at dollars charged for outcomes gained, you might think that reverse osmosis is going to produce a far better outcome. Certainly not from a lot of the users that we're finding using the approach.
Given the example that you've just put forward to us, on that basis, I would suspect that there'd be people knocking your door down.
It's only just becoming the case. What we've been experiencing is a fascinating degree of resistance in the last decade because, again, magnetic water approaches have been around for years. There's been many a black box. Everybody knows there's some story where there's been a gadget that's made promises, and if it sounds too good to be true, often it is too good. Often it isn't true. And we've certainly come in on the coattails of that damage, certainly in the water industry. So as a consequence, we've been cautiously and slowly moving into the markets and only basing our credibility for years. We did it on a money-back guarantee with the users, and the users we have, over thousands now out in the market, haven't asked for their money back, and we've been building a reputation as being a result-producing technology. And the thing that is interesting is, as in the last decade, of course, hence this kind of an article, the rhetoric about sustainability is now meeting the real need for it. And with what we are doing, showing consistent outcomes that are positive, I think we're getting more and more users who are starting to, and certainly larger and larger parties who are paying attention to the approach.
So is any resistance in the marketplace, or is it more surrounding resistance within, say, the scientific community? Because oftentimes you find that if there is controversy or debate, it exists within the scientific community where there might be opposing points of view.
You've summed it up beautifully. One of the things that we've learned is whatever science we get so far as a very small outfit without the deep pockets to pay the research funds, that the absence of science is one of the big issues that has the large bureaucratic organisations and government departments so far up until recently anyway, fairly standoffish. We're starting to find more and more interest from them as the same need exists and is getting greater. But certainly within the scientific fraternity there is a lack of information about what bond breaking really produces, and we've been welcoming and inviting it, but finding that largely there is a healthy skepticism/cynicism and a large chemical science-driven community which seems to find some of the theories and the explanations that are offered about what we're making happen, they often just like to shoot it down, and there's been a big resistance, which has been frustrating for us very, very much, and we've just had to go the path of least resistance, which has been to work with the market demands where the consumers are with the problems. So hence we're not just applying it to vineyards and farms, but we currently have projects around the world going where we're looking at ballast water trials in Holland with a maritime university. We have trials on black water happening in the Middle East and making change there that's been fairly well recorded. There is a shipping company about to fit units for ballast water in Singapore on one of their vessels to see if we can improve the problems that they have with ballast contaminating the oceans and to reduce the sludge. So we've been sort of the usual thing, needing to leave Australia to look for more receptive uptake of the approach.
It's all too common a story, unfortunately, and given the current climate that we find ourselves in Australia, it's even more astonishing. In recent times, of course, with collaborative research centres being established around the country, there's an enormous focus on water security, water catchment and distribution that technology such as this is not being supported and pursued at a higher level, not necessarily by governments or government-sponsored research centres alone, but in cooperation with with the market and the commercial sector?
Well, we've been finding that, I agree completely, we've been finding that the third-party research would be the best form of research. It's not independently, or it's not sourced by ourselves, and hence we have had BHP conduct some trials on the technology on some coal mine dams for blue-green algae control, and the Maritime University doing their trialling, etc. We keep welcoming it. It is a very time-consuming process, and as a small team, again, the best results we have are from the anecdotals by applying the technology to winning. But we are welcome. We've looked forward to partnering people, and we've implored over the years, from the federal government to the state governments down, and found a usual line of response, which has been very educational. But we also still are realistic about and have come to appreciate the nature of the challenges that we've got. But the good thing is that we keep on making the results available for those who've got the problems, and we're getting more and more respect from various communities.
Well, and if the results are being put on the board in a practical application sense, then I assume we'll get to the point where, the market will say, well, the scientists be damned, we'll have it anyway.
We had that happen the last summer because of the drought in certain regions around Australia where we've been advertising, and we experienced a heck of an uptake, and we were also on the ABC landline program, and a lot of farmers picked up on that. And it is exactly that sentiment. The community with the problems aren't sitting around waiting for the authorities necessarily to give full endorsement, because they've just got to deal with the problems now. And we don't stand up and say that we are the be-all and end-all. That's the challenge that we've had with this thing. We've just been saying, look, please don't shoot the messenger. These are the results we've experienced so far. And in solving problems from iron problems, massive iron problems for, say, a golf course in Sydney, where they were using lots of caustic chemicals every year to a tune of $40,000 a year to oxidise the iron and flock it out, put Hydrosmart on, and they have a very green golf course now without using any chemicals, taking away the dangers that were going on for the staff and improving the outcomes. We're doing iron, salinity, scale, killing off algae and blue-green algae in various bodies of water where we've applied the technology. And so we're unblocking vessels, pipes like the Spirit of Tasmania, where we took a struvite crystal build out from the sewage pipes on both their vessels, and have effectively done that for the last 3 years. So we keep applying it and getting a body of information or evidence that it works, but we know that the research has to catch up to us eventually.
Well, it sounds as though they're going to have to, they being the researchers, are going to have to run significantly much faster than what they currently are to catch up to you. We wish you well with it.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that.
Paul Pearce, Director of Hydrosmart International.
With thanks to Axis Direct, an environmental services recruitment consultancy. This is H2O Today.